Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a totally fascinating story about real wealth, hidden traps, and the illusions of modern finance. Think of it as a tale of three neighbors. We've got Desmond, Sarah, and Marcus. Now, they all live on the exact same street, and from the outside, they look perfectly similar. But behind closed doors, they inhabit completely different financial universes. We're going to unpack their stories to reveal the real math behind building wealth, and show you exactly why the traditional metrics you've been taught to measure yourself against, well, they might be completely fabricated.
So, are you actually behind in life, or are you just measuring yourself with a crooked ruler? This is the exact question that keeps so many of us awake at 2 in the morning. You look at a bank statement, you read some headline about where you should be, and you just feel that sinking feeling in your chest, right? You kind of assume you missed a meeting in your 20s that nobody invited you to, and you are hopelessly behind. Okay, let's dive into this, because the truth we're about to uncover is going to completely reframe how you view your own progress.
Let's start with Desmond. Desmond is 41 years old, he installs HVAC systems, and honestly, he makes a really solid living. But every single night he experiences this full body drop when he looks at his $44,000 retirement balance. And why is he so stressed? Because he keeps reading these articles claiming the average American his age has about $167,000 saved up. So naturally, he assumes he's a total failure. But here's the catch. He's missing someone in this equation, a guy named Gerald. See, Gerald is a 63-year-old, extremely wealthy orthodontist living in Scottsdale with $2.1 million in his retirement accounts. Now, Gerald is doing absolutely nothing wrong, but his massive wealth is quietly being averaged in, entirely skewing the math for everyone else.
And this brilliantly illustrates a concept we call the crooked ruler. It's a skewed statistical average that makes the median person falsely believe they are falling short. When you take a handful of massive, multi-million-dollar accounts like Gerald's and average them together with everyone else, the number skyrockets. It stops describing anybody who actually exists in the real world. The incredible truth here? Desmond's $44,000 is the true median. It's the exact center of the line. So he is literally winning against half the country. Yet he spent his entire working life comparing himself to the ghost of a Scottsdale orthodontist, quietly concluding that he came up short. Crazy, right?
Now, while Desmond is paralyzed by this entirely fabricated shame, let's look at his neighbor, Sarah. Sarah is living in a completely different illusion, something one of our sources perfectly describes as a matrix setup. To the outside world, Sarah looks incredibly successful. She dresses impeccably, drives a beautiful car, takes flashy trips. But here's the reality. She spends money like she's already rich, because she's convinced that one day she inevitably will be. She is literally adapting to a lifestyle she sees herself having 10 years from now, rather than facing the actual reality of her bank account today.
The thing is, Sarah is living by a really dangerous philosophy. Just because you're broke doesn't mean you can feel broke. She feels this immense, crushing pressure to project success to everyone around her. So she masks her underlying financial anxiety by literally purchasing the feeling of wealth. But as you can probably guess, buying that feeling comes with a devastatingly high price tag.
$1,200. Let that number sink in for a second. That is Sarah's staggering monthly payment for her brand new Jeep. On an entry-level salary, she went out and financed a $46,000 vehicle. Between the massive auto loan and the extended warranty, she's handing over about $1,200 every single month. That eats up half her paycheck. She is the absolute definition of car poor. She is effectively working full-time just to keep the machine that transports her to work. But honestly, it gets even worse when we look under the hood at how she actually bought it.
You see, Sarah didn't just take out a bad loan. Oh no, she built what we call a debt lasagna. Let's break down the recipe. Step 1. She rolled negative equity from her old car into the new loan. This means she is literally borrowing new money to cover money she already owed on a car she doesn't even drive anymore. Step 2. She takes out that massive new $46,000 loan. And step 3, this is the absolute kicker. She put the down payment for this entire setup on a credit card charging 25% interest. She stacked 3 layers of compounding interest on an asset that loses value the second you drive it off the lot. Because all her available cash is tied up in baking this debt lasagna, Sarah has to use buy now, pay later apps just to afford her groceries. I mean, she's splitting her Tuesday night chicken dinners into 4 bi-weekly payments. This is the tragic, exhausting reality of living above your means. She is effectively paying a subscription to her own past. Think about it. Every dollar of interest she pays today is a dollar her future self earned, but never actually gets to touch. She is eating her own seed corn while looking around wondering why she doesn't have a harvest. Okay, let's take a breath and contrast this by bringing in our final neighbor, Marcus. Marcus lives very quietly down the street. He definitely doesn't post motivational reels on social media, and he certainly doesn't drive a dream car. While Sarah is busy chasing glamorous one-time hits of dopamine and Desmond is stressed out about some invisible finish line, Marcus focuses on something entirely different. He focuses on boring, predictable, recurring revenue. What does recurring revenue actually look like? Well, Marcus runs a commercial cleaning business. He cleans local hospitals and corporate office parks. It is the furthest possible thing from glamorous. But here is his secret weapon. Hygiene isn't a luxury. It is a strict, non-negotiable requirement. When you solve boring problems, you secure long-term contracts. You don't have to wake up every single morning and hunt for a brand new customer. Your customers pay you automatically, month after month, and your business survives economic downturns because your service is an absolute necessity.
Now, Marcus is a guy who is completely obsessed with real math. One afternoon, he sits Desmond down to talk about the hidden financial traps of middle-class life. Desmond has always assumed that renting is just throwing money away, right? That's what we're all taught. But Marcus introduces him to the 5% rule. He breaks down the true, unrecoverable costs of a house that people conveniently forget to mention at dinner parties. We're talking property taxes, homeowners insurance premiums, PMI, and the constant drumbeat of maintenance.
Marcus explains it perfectly. Your monthly mortgage payment isn't the total cost of the house. It's literally just the down payment on the true cost of owning. The quiet killer of homeownership isn't the loan. It's the roof that unexpectedly needs replacing, the water heater that dies in the middle of February, and the local property taxes that only ever seem to go up. Renting isn't inherently bad if you are diligently investing the difference. Marcus totally shatters the myth that just buying a house automatically guarantees financial success without doing the actual math.
But Marcus's most eye-opening lesson for Desmond is about something he calls the leash. Say you want to retire early, maybe at 45. Well, you are still 20 years away from Medicare. Buying private health insurance on the open market without those sweet employer subsidies can easily cost you tens of thousands of dollars every single year. It acts as a leash. It's a machine perfectly designed to keep workers contained in jobs they have entirely outgrown until they hit 65, simply because they are terrified of losing their health care.
So the absolutely crucial turning point here is this. Desmond genuinely listens to Marcus and suddenly something clicks. He decides he's completely done being a person with opinions about his money. Opinions that are driven by fear, crooked rulers, and skewed average statistics. Instead, he decides to become a person with systems. He stops trying to sprint an impossible race against the ghost of that Scottsdale orthodontist, and he finally starts doing the real math for the actual life he lives.
This is when Desmond discovers the concept of coast fire. Instead of stressing out trying to save $2 million so he can completely stop working tomorrow, his new goal is simply to build a floor. Coast fire basically means front-loading your investments until they are large enough to just sit there and compound on their own to cover your traditional retirement later. Once you hit that floor, you never have to save another dime for retirement. You get to reclaim your entire current paycheck. You don't necessarily quit working, you just finally stop being afraid. And Desmond puts this into action immediately by changing his defaults. Look, human willpower is incredibly fragile, so he just automates the right behaviors. He logs into his account and sets his 401k to automatically increase by just 1% every single year. He completely stops looking at those useless national averages. And most importantly, he starts treating his car exactly as it should be treated, as a toll booth with a steering wheel that simply gets him to work safely, not as a shiny status symbol meant to impress people he doesn't even know.
Through all of this, Desmond finally internalizes an absolute truth of personal finance. Income has no ceiling, but expenses have a floor. You can only cut your budget so deeply before you are essentially just holding yourself hostage in your own life. To truly build a harvest, you eventually have to stop extreme couponing and focus on the top line, your income, and deploy it into systems that grow while you sleep. Desmond is finally out there planting his own harvest instead of desperately eating his seed corn like Sarah.
And that brings us to the ultimate question that you really have to ask yourself today. If your future was already fully funded, if you automated your wealth, completely ignored the crooked rulers, and built a solid floor beneath you, what would you do on Monday? Because the answer to that specific question, that is what real financial freedom actually looks like. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you go out and change your own defaults.